ụlọ nsọ gị Chukwu ka anyị na-abata, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Anya bịawa ịsọpụrụ gị ugbu a, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Chukwu nna n'ụlọ gị ka anyị na-akpọ gị, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Otito na-adịrị gị mgbe niile, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike.
Otite niile dịrị Chineke, ụbọchị dị elu, Chukwu obiọma, Chidi ebere, Olisa nwa amara, ka ụzọ anyị ọbụla niile bụrụ ihe, ka ihe ọbụla kpatara aka bụrụ sọ mma, ka ụwa niile site n'ozi ọma anyị a nweta obi aṅụrị taa mgbe niile ebighị ebi. Ọfọ ya gazie ise o. All praises to Chi the Creator, the Supreme Being, Chi the Good, Chi the Merciful, Chi the Magnificent with grace. Let every way of our lives be light. Let all our acts be crowned with good. May the world prosper from our ministry, Global Faith Ministry of Chism, now and forever. So let it be. Amen.
Ise ndewo dibia yudi mama
Ndewo
mama
ka
goodness is what I hope for you. That is what I pray for you. Thank you for that wonderful prayer. It is a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. We are breathing, inhaling and exhaling. You know, yesterday somebody died. Somewhere somebody lost their life.
I'm at a funeral right now. Well, I went to a funeral yesterday, so I totally feel you. You know, I'm in Boston right now, so I'm in Baltimore, in Maryland. So I wasn't here last week, so I apologize for being absent last week. But I'm here now, so let's do this.
No. We understand. And we really truly pray for the soul of our sister. She's not an ancestor yet because she died quite young. So she's on her journey, and we're going to wish her well on her journey and hope that nothing but goodness follows her. So when she comes back, she'll be greater still. Okay. They want a long life to you all. And that is what we are hoping and praying for all of you, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, KDB Ochoaja, Dr. Wonyon Husimri. Of course, my co-host offered the prayer today, DB Ochoaja Yudi Onyoha. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We live in a world that is devoid at this moment of unity and somewhat of strength. See, without unity, you lack strength. So I'm going to ask the great spirit of the universe, Chineke, that as we are gathered here as one, bound by the threads of love and purpose, we are grateful for this gift of today, for the breath in our lungs and the beat of our hearts, the opportunity to inhale and exhale. Thank you, Chineke. We ask for guidance. God knows we need it. Many of us are straying. As we walk this path together, we need to understand the word together. The word together is so important. We're walking together. May our minds be open to wisdom and our hearts filled with compassion. Let us honor our ancestors who have paved the way for us and let their strength flow through us. We are not alone. I am indeed chin. Now, every day we are with our ancestors. We are and the ancestors to help us to embrace our differences, though we have differences, but there's just so much that we have together, that we share together, than what separates us.
True.
Let us not focus on our separation. Let us celebrate the beauty of our diversity.
Yes.
Let us support each other, sharing the joy and sorrow alike as we rise together in unity. Unity is the key word here. We are more powerful if we work as one. When we separate ourselves, distinguish ourselves because of our differences, we lose our strength. With gratitude, we offer our intentions for love, healing, and peace to prevail. The world needs it. May our actions reflect the grace of Chineke. May our spirits be uplifted by Chineke. And as we journey forward, let us understand that it is important to reach across the aisle and grab each other's hands and walk. Because if this world ends tomorrow, if for whatever reason the world ends tomorrow, nobody's surviving. So no matter who we are, no matter the differences, we have to understand that we share this world together. And we must do whatever is necessary to that we live together so we can survive together. Because if we destroy this world with our actions, our negativity, what we put out there in the universe, all of us suffer the consequences. So today, I want us to bear in mind that our unity is our strength. What divides us is not our strength, it is our source of weakness. Today, I want to Divya Yudi, if you don't mind, just share a little bit about the young woman who passed away. Just a short time.
She was a very, very beautiful, smart, hard-working young lady. She was only 20 years old, married to her middle school sweetheart. That's how long they've been dating. The brother is, I think, 29. She's 28. And they started dating when they were in middle school. And from the story that I gather, once the boy's mother saw that girl, she just exclaimed that that's the girl that her son was going to marry. And he ended up that way. And I got to tell you, for a 28-year-old, the funeral, the number of people that were there, and mostly young cats that were maybe 30-something to 25 or whatever, age bracket. It was one of the most reassuring things that I've seen in terms of making sure that you live a good life where those that you leave behind will come to pay their last respect, and the whole world will know that you had impacted so many lives in a positive way. White, black, there were people of all kinds of hues and human race over there yesterday. It was just a beautiful, beautiful thing to behold. She was a college graduate, a great mom, just opened her own business, but unfortunately ended up having to go through cancer treatment for leukemia type cancer or something. And she was in and out of the hospital for 3 years. For 3 years, she was doing pretty good. But then the last 2 months, from what I heard and understand, the cancer came back. And when it came back aggressively and took that girl. Her mother-in-law told us a story about when she was in the hospital, during her final years, and she had beckoned her mother-in-law to come closer. And then when she came closer, she told the mother-in-law that she was tired of fighting. And the mother-in-law said, it's okay. It's your choice. If you want to keep fighting, we will be here for you. And you will fight for as long as you possibly can fight. And if you can't fight and you decide that you want to leave, that's your decision. We will support that. But I just want you to know that your children are going to be okay. We will take care of your kids. And it was just such a heart-wrenching occasion where the parents on both sides, particularly on the boys' side, right? Here you are, an empty nester. Then all of a sudden, now you guys got to take care to help your son take care of a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 11-month-old. And of course, the kids are so young, they really don't know what's going on. So it was really hard. She was such a smart, promising, beautiful, beautiful young lady, great husband, married to a great family. It was just a painful thing. But the strength that you saw from her husband in particular, and the lady's mom, kind of gave us, or gave me hope and made me think that, man, if these people can handle this kind of situation, who am I to complain about anything? We lost our mom a few years ago, 2 years ago. We just buried her and came back from Nigeria. We've lost our own parents. We're older people now and all that. But to watch a young lady at the age of 28 years old go through cancer and not make it makes you start asking, why, God? Why did you have to take this young lady away? Was it necessary? There are a lot of people there that have committed all kinds of craziness in this world that are young too, that you could have taken. But not this lady that was filling everybody's life with joy. It was just a beautiful thing, and it's a loss for the family. I've met the girl several times, the lady several times when I came to Baltimore. It's a loss for everybody that knew her, and most importantly, a big, big loss for her children who will never see their mother again. That's a painful thing, but it is what it is. That goes on.
She's coming back. She'll be back greater still.
Yeah, she will reincarnate greater still. That's our culture. That's our tradition. She will come back and she will be bigger and better and healthier than she was when she was here. Yeah.
Better.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's not the end. It's not the end yet. She didn't make it to the age of 80, so we know she's not an ancestor yet. So that means she'll be journeying back, and she's going to even be better. The family may not. You know how African spirituality would believe you come back to your family. So somehow, somewhere down the road, they're gonna. She'll be back, and when maybe that little girl that will come back all feisty and everything. That's her.
Yes.
He said, another young woman lost her life. Rebecca Cheptegei, Ugandan Olympian who was killed by her ex-partner. They just buried her yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. After hard work, that woman worked so hard, coming out of poverty, supporting all the younger athletes in the community, working so hard to ensure that they have a future as she has found for herself. And an ex-partner killed her. You have a lot of hate and jealousy in your heart to take somebody's life like that.
I just never understood that stuff.
That is the kind of tragedy.
The human emotion is very fickle.
And I'm going to welcome Lucia.
Give your charger. You are looking different today.
I'm out of town. I'm out of town right now. So I'm logged into the show from out of town.
No, but you are looking good.
Well, thank you.
Wonderful.
Just
Thank
make
you.
sure, just make sure you don't get a new girlfriend before you come back.
My wife will kill me. She's right here.
I know she won't kill you. She won't kill you. She's an African woman.
You got it all wrong, brother. We don't take that. You got it wrong,
okay,
brother.
as an African woman,
Get
and
it
I
right.
dare you
You
to
don't have
give
it
her
right.
one reason to take somebody's head off, and she will.
If she sits right there, honey, you is in trouble. You
No, she won't take anybody's head off. She will be angry.
Yeah, because she's an Ochoaja.
She won't take anybody's head off.
She's an Okedibia. I must act accordingly. Yes.
You must act accordingly. Okay. I get it now. Okay, so Lydia, welcome. We were just talking about all the individuals that so far have been lost. And I just shared the young lady, Rebecca Cheptegei of Uganda. She's an Olympian that was killed. We need a little bit more unity in this world. Too much hatred, too much, And today we want to really offer our heartfelt support for the immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, who are going through so much hell today. Because a woman started a rumor about them killing pets. It was just a rumor. She wasn't even a part of it. Somebody said something about her cat being killed or something of that nature. And it turns out it was an American that killed the cat, right? But the political leaders, and I don't want to call their names, you all know who they are, started talking about the fact that the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, were eating people's cats and dogs. And based on that rumor, that vicious, you can't get more vicious than that. Yeah. You got people now in Springfield fearing for their lives, walking down the streets, and people are asking them, do you eat cats? Do you eat dogs? I mean, one man just broke down and said, it's not our culture. We don't eat dogs. We don't eat cats. And and even the officials of Springfield have said this is a lie. Even the woman who started the rumor, she broke down and said she's so sorry. She didn't mean it. It was just a little something that she posted on her Facebook page. And these religious leaders took it and ran with it. Destroying, and as a matter of fact, I just want to share this. The Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, are all legitimate. They're legitimate immigrants, okay?
All of them.
Springfield, Ohio was dying. People were leaving Springfield. And these people came into Springfield and gave it life again. All the jobs that native Ohioans will not take, they started doing it. They started working. The place, they revived that city. And now this, let me tell you, I don't want to call names because if I do, I'll just go over the deep end. But right now, we need a little bit more love in this world. We need to not use people as scapegoats. This is creating hatred among so many of the people in Ohio against each other. We have to rise above this. If we truly believe in the Holy Spirit, we have to increase our love for humanity. We have to rise above this. Have a little bit more humanitarianism, if I use that expression, in our hearts for other human beings. If you hear a story about somebody, just don't assume that the rest of the world that look like them are evil. Do your research and find out. This is not godly. You cannot, I'm telling you, any human being who says that they are religious or they believe or they're Christian or Muslim or so whatsoever, and you believe horrible stories told to you that are false about other human beings, you should be ashamed. The Haitians in that community, I hope they recover. And I hope America will recover from these kinds of things. That's the same thing that goes on in Nigeria. They tell you that the Igbos are responsible for what's going on in Lagos. And you attack the Igbos. You don't attack those in the leadership that are leading you off the deep end. But you have to find a scapegoat. That's what political leaders are doing in the world these days. Finding a scapegoat.
Scapegoating.
Scapegoating. They incite and wage discord based on our differences. And we are so weak mentally, human beings right now, because of all the nonsense. Our humanity our mentality has just been so reduced that the differences that we used to celebrate, now we see it as as a means to an end. Disparaging each other is a means to an end. Interpersonal relationships are just being torn apart by falsities. We've got to stop that. That's not being a spiritual human being. May humanity everywhere get soaked in time in the philosophy of Chiism, so that this philosophy of live and let live will become a concept of unity, love, and support for our fellow human beings, so we can find that love and that peace that we're looking for. We can't find it going the way we are. And let me tell you the truth. You cannot blame it on Chineke. You cannot blame it on God. You cannot say it's God's will. You cannot say that you are working for God when you are hating, purposely hating. Now, I can challenge you if you disparage me and my people. But I don't have to hate you for that. I can challenge you. I can prove my point. But I don't have to hate you for that. There's an African proverb that says, after a fight comes friendship, understanding, not for the purpose of dehumanizing you and killing you, but to make my point. And if I come up on top, so be it. We shake hands and we move on. But this devastation of other people just because they're different or they share different opinions, it's horrible. Anyway, the topic of today is faith and economic hardship. Finding hope in difficult times. So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss how economic struggles impact spiritual beliefs and the role of faith in providing hope and resilience. Poverty makes it so difficult for some people to find faith in their religion. I found something that happened at Walmart about 2 days ago. And quite frankly, that is why I chose this topic. This gentleman is asking for money. He needs money. He's asking for money. So this guy is standing there. He has his bag full of whatever he's got. And he turns to him and says, "May I pray for you? May I pray for you?" The man got angry and said, "Pray for me? You don't think I'm praying? You don't think I've been praying? You think God doesn't hear my prayer, but will hear your prayer? I'm hungry and you want to pray for me? I don't need your prayer, man. Go on." Prayer is only important when the person that is receiving your prayer feels that your prayer is working or that prayer works. It depends on the economic condition of the people. Prayer is effective depending on the level of poverty, economic standing of a person. And I think it's very, very important. We don't use it. We don't tell people who are struggling, "Oh, pray some more." We have to take into consideration why they're where they are and what hope can we give them. Remember, in African spirituality, we say, we are God to each other. So if somebody's praying, who are you asking them to pray to? When Chineke uses you as the instrument for change, for hope. So just telling a person, "I'll pray for you," what does that mean? You're supposed to be the conduit for good in my life. Instead of praying for me, give me something, then I will believe the prayer. Then I'll believe that Chineke has heard the prayer because Chineke has used you as the instrument to help me. So let's just talk about it. All three of us, please, I want you to focus on each particular subject that kind of poverty that I'm talking about, and you add your input. Absolute poverty and faith. So what is absolute poverty? This is a condition where the individuals lack the necessities for survival, such as food, clean water, shelter, and clothing. That's absolute poverty. There's no hope. The stress of living in absolute poverty can lead to severe mental issues like depression, anxiety, feelings of hopelessness. Faith may be challenged as individuals struggle to find meaning and support in their circumstances. So it's not enough to tell people, have faith when I can't eat. Have faith when my children look like skeletons. Have faith. Faith does not feed. If I am no longer poor, if I can feed myself, that's when I believe that the prayer is working. But if I pray and pray and pray and nothing is happening, then it's difficult for me to believe in the power of prayer. Now, if somebody comes along and helps me out, then for those of us who believe that Madu will be there, that's at the point that we say, Chineke has heard my prayer. A vessel has been introduced into my life to do what I asked Chineke to do. So let's not get it twisted. Don't tell people to pray when they're living in absolute poverty. Don't tell them to pray. Be the answer to their prayer. Poverty. That's the topic.
Yeah, absolute poverty, definition-wise, when you're lacking the most basic needs, right? If you can't meet the basic needs like food, water, shelter, regardless of what the living standard is in any society, that's absolute poverty, when you absolutely cannot afford anything. Now, societies change, we evolve for the better, or we evolve into something that is just so totally bad and terrible for human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute
Mm-hmm.
poverty can also be talked about based on the standards in the society and how society handles its citizens. What kind of society you have. If it's a society that offers opportunity for everybody, like in ancient Ngoro, we had a society where there was nothing like poverty. Everything was already predestined. From the time that you are born, you get to a certain age, then you go off and leave your parents, and then you go to and it's 7 years rites of passage from the time you leave home till you're about 18 years old. And then after that, you go back to your parents. And when you go back to your parents, there's already a lady betrothed for you. You already have a plot of land. You also have your hut, and you could build a new one if you want to. You are prepared. While you're going through the rites of passage, you are prepared to choose what discipline that you want to be involved in through your life. Do you want to be a farmer? During the rites of passage, you learn about farming. Do you want to be a hunter? During the rites of passage, you learn about that. Do you want to be a dibia? During the rites of passage, you will learn about being a dibia. When you get out, when you graduate, when you go through your rites of passage, as soon as you come out, the idea of poverty and all that stuff is null and void. You get enough for you and your immediate family. You have a plot of land that you could cultivate. And if at some point you find yourself in a position where you can take on more than one wife, it means that you can expand your family. And the more you expand your family and you have children and you have wives, the bigger your family, it simply means that you have a bigger plot of land to harvest, to plant your yam. So while the West is looking at people in Africa as doing something that is blasphemous, because you're married, you have more than one wife. In the West over here, they're having concubines, even though you're married to one woman. So in Africa, having more than one wife was not because of pleasure. It was more of an economic thing. And only if you can afford to do that. So for me, we have to look at evolution. We have to look at the society itself and how they define or handle poverty in a society, what they have put in place to make sure that you don't have that. Now, if you're in a totally communist, a capitalistic society like the United States, absolute poverty hits hard. In Nigeria, it hits hard because you don't have any institutions or that takes care of people like in the United States, regardless of how poor you are. You get some stipend from the government, Social Security, and all these other benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever it is that you get from the government, that it may not get you a house. You might even be homeless out there. But if you put in the paperwork to get those benefits, you will find and get those benefits, no matter what your condition is. So for me, two things are in place here. Number one is how a society is structured. And then number two is faith. And when I talk about faith, what am I saying? How do you define faith? Faith in what capacity? What does faith really mean in terms of how you look at your human being, another human being? In Nkoro, we have a saying, or in Chiism, Madubuchibe. Chineke's blessings always filters through somebody. You understand what I'm trying to say? We don't, in African society, separate the human being from Chineke. It's a direct relationship. That God you're praying to is in you. Madubuchibe. And only through somebody else, for the most part, unless it's a miracle, which almost is an impossibility, will you be blessed in any other way beyond a human being blessing you in the name of Chineke. So when it comes to absolute poverty, faith plays a very crucial role. However, the more distant you are from your fellow human being in terms of the demands of your faith, the more incessant and the more penetrating absolute poverty can be. Because for one thing, in Christianism, for example, it's about a personal relationship between you and the guy with the great beer in the sky. Your fellow human being has nothing to do with your relationship with God. The closest human being to you, to God, is the Jesus character. In Islam, is the Muhammad God. The human being as a spiritual entity that can bless you is totally removed from the equation. So for me, poverty and faith depends on your religious faith or spiritual faith. There's a difference between the two: spiritual faith or religious. And most people don't go by spiritual faith. They go by religious faith, where they belong to. What is that? The third rung of I think it's the third rung of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is the need for socialization, to belong. I mean, a need for belongingness. That's what people really get involved in when it comes to religious faith. Go to church, even though your Bible doesn't say you have to go to church. The Bible doesn't even say you have to pay tithes, but you will conform and you will structure your faith and your relationship with God based on, number one, your religious affiliation and the church that you go to, and what your religion says about the importance of a human being as a spiritual vessel for Chineke and faith. And we don't hang faith on anybody. We hang faith directly on the human being, and we'll consider, on Chineke, and we'll consider every other human being a vessel of Chineke, a representation, not just the human being.
That's it right there.
Yeah, and not just that, even the environment is considered a path of this cauldron. So there's a lot of things need to be addressed when you talk about absolute poverty and faith. This is just my take, and that's how I really look at it. You have to really do a deep dive into it, not define or look at it from a general or a blanket point of view, but to really dissect it, break it down to what's the difference between faith and religion when it comes to addressing poverty? What does your doctrine or your theology say about your relationship with your fellow human being? Because societies like in Africa, in my village of Nkoro, that believe that Madubuchibe is probably the greatest instrument you have in dealing with absolute poverty, because your fellow human being, the way the society is structured, makes sure that absolute poverty is never a condition that you consider in ancient African societies. Just like we didn't have a whole lot of crime, we didn't have jail. It was based on our spirituality and how we define our relationship with our environment, our fellow human being, and Chineke. All those things, if you are nurtured that way in a society, allows a society to deal with poverty in a very constructive but humanitarian way, where even though you are dealing with
Holistic. Our society is
holistic, yeah,
okay, we're very
yeah,
holistic. We work,
very,
so we don't
yeah,
we looked at life in terms of what is good for all of us, because what's good for all of us is good for me. That's why they say
exactly,
almost
yeah, but yeah,
they laugh at you. Yeah, because when they say Nea Marioto, they're not talking about your mother. They're looking at the mother as, as the community, the society.
and we're communal thinkers. We're communal thinkers. The community comes first before the individual. In the West, the individual comes first before the community, and that's why absolute poverty is a big deal in the West. Because if you're absolutely poor, that's your problem. It ain't the society's problem. You're just going to be considered weak, shoved to the side. You're out there, you're gone. You're homeless, you're rolling around in the street, whatever it is, and you're forgotten. Now you become a problem. Nobody's addressing your spiritual, economic, political, medical, whatever issues you may have. If you're homeless,
they don't see you. They don't see you as
they don't see you as a human being. Once you have a problem in the West, yeah, it's a problem for them. They just don't want you to be involved. It's a problem. Once you're poor over here and you're homeless, people will look at you as, oh boy, you're a scourge of the society, and it's over for you. So for me, it just depends on how the societies address poverty. In Africa, in my village where I come from, Madubuchi, you're God you're like Chineke to your fellow human being, because all God's blessings come through people and somebody else. And the society is structured in such a way that from the time that you are born, they make sure that you never experience absolute poverty, because you will never be a burden on the society. The society will make sure that it takes care of you by creating opportunities from the time that you're born through your rites of passage till you get out, so that you never end up in the position where the necessities of food, clothing, and shelter becomes a big issue in your life. That's my take on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Dibia Chedozie. Thank you, Dibia Yudi. Go ahead.
You said a lot. In fact, that's a lesson in socio-political philosophy.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think you said it all, and I will just map out those things that people need to note about what both of you have said so far concerning faith and economic empowerment. All right. So before I go on, I like to say ndewo to those who are sending messages to us, Okunna, Charles, and Stephanie. Now, for me, the question of poverty in the society, like both of you have said, and how faith comes into it. First, let us take the question of poverty. Poverty in the society means that the social structure has failed.
Yes.
Or that.
Absolutely. I like that. Yeah.
It's either that the social structure has failed or that the social structure is standing on a wrong foot.
Yeah.
In fact, from what Dibia Ochaja has said, it is not good for the social structure to stand on one foot. It's good for it to stand on 2 feet. So, and that's why we call it communalism. And people mixed up communalism with communism.
And communism, yeah.
Communism is standing on 1 foot. 1 foot. And that foot is that the community swallows up the individual.
Yeah.
And it is the extreme end of capitalism. Because in capitalism, the individual stifles the community. Which is why one of my teachers, Kenneth Kelvin Chukwulozie Anyang, wrote, he says, whether African politicians and leaders, whether they go to the East to take communism or go to the West to take capitalism, they are bound to fail, because capitalism has never succeeded. Neither capitalism nor communism has ever succeeded in building a community of people. And so, the whole thing of faith is anchored on the structure of the society.
Yes.
Why? What
Absolutely.
is faith? Faith is a function of the heart. And so it needs to be guided by the head.
Yeah.
And so when the head and the heart are in union, then faith will be well directed.
Yes.
But if faith is faith of the heart alone, then it is blind.
Absolutely.
Because faith means having complete confidence, complete trust.
Because Dibia, go back and repeat that again. Repeat it, because it's very poignant, and I think people need to really get what you just said in the last 10 seconds or 20 seconds. Please repeat that again.
I said, when it comes to the issue of faith and the society and controlling poverty, we must match the head and the heart. They must work together.
Yes.
Because the head must direct the heart.
Yeah.
When the heart directs the heart, there will be vision, not just blind faith.
Yeah.
But when the heart alone is at work, without the head directing it, what you have is blind faith.
Thank you.
And leaping into a dark hole.
Yeah.
Dark because it's not well defined. And so you take a blind leap into a dark hole. If you are lucky, you may survive. If you are not lucky, you may come up with broken lips. And sometimes the individual might even, like you say today in modern language, die. So it is always good, like it is done in Chiism, it's done in our culture, that the human being is brought up as a complete whole.
Yes.
Knowing that we are spirit, soul, and body. And that the universe we live in is a tripartite being. The universe is a being that has spirit, soul, and body. And that is manifested in the environment we live. And the constitution of the environment is a constitution of everything in the environment. But in the human being, there's a high level of evolution of being, in the sense of having the concept, the notion, the idea of onwe mado, self. That notion of self has to be managed. So in communalism, our ancestors understood, which Chiism is replicating, that the human being must be brought up as a whole, not only in tandem with the society, but in tandem with the cosmic knowledge. That is why for us, the society is an application of the cosmic order. And the cosmic order that is replicated in the society is replicated in the individual. So communalism is always a synergy, that middle point between the individual, the society, and the environment.
Yes.
And then we are always told to maintain the middle path of taming our excesses. And so, like we have the saying, like the Indians will say, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. Communalism says we have to go together so that we can go far. And in going together, that's why we have proverbs like mbikota njikota aka bondo bike,
Eziokwu.
mbisasi bo.
Yeah.
Communing together, solidarity is life, is existence. Yeah. Individualism, extreme individualism is death.
Dangerous, absolutely.
So that is why the communalistic society was in itself philanthropic. It was in itself philanthropic.
Absolutely. That's pretty much it.
Philanthropism is not left for just few individuals. It was something the society itself practiced.
It was part
because
of it, yes.
nature in itself is sustaining and philanthropic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nature gives us a lot of goodies.
Yeah.
That if we use our minds, then we can harness this goodness of nature for the well-being of society. In the first instance, what does it mean to have to make society? We made society to overcome poverty, to conquer poverty.
Yeah.
That is why society is stakeholding. It's not shareholding. It's stakeholding.
Yeah.
And that is why it is built on the principle of ugu. Respect, reciprocity of respect, complementarity of respect, which is why we say ugu chineke, ugu nwanyị, ugu nwoke, ugu ndị okenye, ugu ndị ụmụntakịrị. Everybody has his own respect.
Yeah.
If you go to the Yoruba axis, they say it is on the foundation of respect, Iba, that the society is built, just like we say too.
Yeah.
And so they say Iba Olodumare, Ugu Chineke.
Ugu bo kwaita nkwaita.
Oh, yeah, nkwatanu. And then they say Ugu Mmadu, Iba Ininyo. Ugu Nwoke, Iba Ọkùnrin. Ugu Nwanyị, Iba Obìnrin. Ugu ndị okenye, Iba àwọn àgbà. Ugu ndị ụmụntakịrị, Iba àwọn èwe. Then we also say Ugu ndị ọbịa, Iba àwọn àjòjì.
Yes.
Which is why when this something of Igbo must go started in Lagos and destroying Igbo property, a traditionalist that is a Dibia, Babalawo, came out and reminded the Yorubas that by the spirituality of the Yoruba, you don't deliberately kill the stranger.
Even in their village, our own village, that's the same thing. Yeah.
And that is against their ontology. And that what they are doing today, they are inviting poverty in future upon their children.
Yeah, absolutely.
He reminded them of that it has serious repercussions.
Yeah.
So the thing there is that capitalism, like you said, Dibo Charger, is built on the principle of each according to his or her ability.
Yeah. And who you know.
Yeah, so yes, we recognize ability in communalism, but we also recognize that we are not all endowed with equal ability.
Yeah. Give everybody equal share.
So we realize that the whole essence of social formation is stakeholding.
Yeah.
And since it's about stakeholding, why did we form society? We form society so that there will be sufficiency for the individual by the cooperation of the community.
Yeah.
So when you have that kind of structure, that kind of system, that kind of arrangement, then faith will be holistic.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
Faith is both spiritual and physical.
Yeah.
But whereas one angle of faith is missing, if you make it spiritual alone, religious alone, it's standing on one leg.
Yeah.
If you make it physical alone, it's standing on one leg. It must always be complementary in the sense that if you come to alpha structure, alpha, we look at the alpha structure called Ori, which Yorubas call Iwori. You see that it's 2, 1, 1, 2. Where you find 2, it represents mobility, dynamism, mutation. So you see that the head must always be in accordance with the feet, while the heart and the stomach must be fixed. Because if your desires are wanton, And because the heart and the stomach represent desires, while the head must control the leg. Meaning that if your desire is fixed, and then your head is thinking several ways of achieving one end, then your feet must be in motion.
Yeah.
So it didn't say that when your head is thinking, you have to be static. That's why we have the saying, meaning that you don't stand in one place to create wealth. You must mix with people. You must know that you must have focus. You must define your focus. And you must not, even when there are several focuses within a focus, you pick the most realistic focus.
Yeah.
You do what is called scale of preference. You pick the most realistic focus and arrange them in descending order, such that the one that is simplest will connect, and the other will connect the other will connect. So you divide it to the simplest, start from the simplest and get to the most difficult. That way you find that one leg will connect to another leg and another leg will connect another. And so most of the whole thing today is that even in the West, they have derailed from the warning of their philosophers, like philosophers like Kant, who warned that human being must never be made and means to an end. Society is human-based. Plato, Kant warned the West. Nothing must take priority over the human being. The human being must be treated as a king.
It's the most important asset. It's the most important asset.
So, and that nothing must take preeminence over and above the human being, meaning that God, religion, spirituality are centered on humanism.
Humanism, absolutely.
And that once anything is made the focus outside the human being, that the human being will be sacrificed to achieve that particular thing.
Absolutely.
So the West have derailed in making mammoth acquisition of wealth to be the center focus of how wealthy you are. And so in that process, the human being will be sacrificed to achieve those wealth. Yeah. And that has become the bane of Africa. In Africa, what we are doing is mimic the West, what in Igbo we call Ihanto. Of course, you know, when your child is growing up, it comes to measure, oh, mother by your shoulder, mother by your ears, oh, mother I've grown above you, oh, daddy, it's now your turn, oh, daddy, you are taller than mom, so I'm now, oh, daddy, very soon, I'm looking down on you, and so I will tell them, as I'm growing the body, we're growing wisdom and knowledge.
Because he can grow tall. He still have to get this more than you.
Yeah, so
now say that
my child is grown does not mean the child has grown holistically.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so
true.
what we are doing in Africa is that we are mimicking. And in mimicking the West, we are mimicking the West so terribly.
The West,
so the West has even managed to develop welfare scheme that you have to key into. We have not developed any. Rather, we have destroyed our own communalism, and in the process, we have destroyed our spirituality. We are running away from our spirituality, which is the center of our communism. Once you remove African spirituality, communism is no longer possible. You cannot build communalism on Christian spirituality, Hindu spirituality, any other spirituality.
Absolutely.
Outside the African spirituality. Once you do that, you are not going to have African spirituality. And so they came out with this demon called mixed economy.
What?
Yeah, you know, I just finish that thought. Finish that thought. I'm sorry.
So they came out with this demon called mixed economy. But mixed economy is no economy, because you are taking two strange bedfellows of two extremes, communism and capitalism. You want to mix them. How can you mix two things that are extreme?
Opposite of each other.
That is, and both of them are not reciprocal. They are monistic, reductionist.
Yeah.
And so it's like marrying two strange bedfellows, what we call praying mantis lovers, whereby as the male is busy perusing into the female. The female is basically eating up the head of the. By the time the intercourse finishes, the male is dead. That is why you see that communism and capitalism are constantly at each other's neck.
Yeah.
One must bring down the other for there to be continuity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
Absolutely.
Beautiful take. Beautiful take. I love that. Some of the things you said, I'm
Beautiful,
really going
beautiful. I love that. I love that. I want to take a moment to recognize those people who are here. Stephanie, my dear, thank you so much for joining us and your comments. We really appreciate it. Diane T, thank you for joining us as well. Let's see, who else do we have here? Mokeji Charles, thank you again for joining us. Always good to see you. And the first person who joined us today, Akimi Bro, thank you for being here. And JVST, thank you all for being here. And thank you, Divya Yudi, and thank you, Divya Chidozie, for all the wonderful things you're sharing today. You are spitting knowledge, if I may use that expression. Now, I want us to go to the next part, the next kind of poverty. It's called relative poverty. This is where we say in Igbo language, anyofu. This is where anyofu comes in. Jealousy comes in. This kind of poverty. It compares an individual's income and resources to the broader communities. All right. Individuals may feel deprived even if their basic needs are met, leading to feelings of inadequacy, social exclusion, and low self-esteem. This can impact mental health by fostering feelings of resentment and frustration. Now, faith might be affected as individuals grapple with societal inequities. Okay, this is a very interesting definition of different kind of poverty, because you all know that there are individuals that they're not happy for you. When they see that you're doing better than they are, they're not happy for you. They start comparing what they have with what you have. That's why sometimes you have people who are really, they can't afford some of the things that they are getting, but when they see, trying to keep up with the Joneses, when they see that somebody else has something that they want, that they don't have at that moment, they get jealous. And that jealousy results in people feeling inadequate. You have that sense of inadequacy. And I went to an event the other day, and I don't want to say what particular event, but I went to an event the other day, and I feel that this particular community seems to really appreciate me and some of the things that I've tried to do and some help I've tried to give them. But this particular person was just kind of just mean-spirited in her attitude towards me, and would not say hello, and just had this scar on her face and all that sort of thing. And to me, I picked up on a sense of inadequacy, from her, a sense of low self-esteem, and she's taking it out on me. So spiritually, she was showing a resentment and frustration with me. It had nothing to do with me. Personally, at least I didn't do anything to hurt her. But what is going the other way, the way that the people are reacting to me and possibly not reacting to her, made her feel inadequate. I'm not here bragging about anything. I'm just keeping it real. Okay. So such individuals grapple with inequalities or inequities in some way or form that impacts their spirit. And when your spirit is impacted, you're not jovial. You're not happy to be around. You know what I'm saying? People have that kind of poverty, and it does affect their faith, because why is it everybody else is doing well and I'm not? Even if they're eating properly, even if they have enough income and enough resources to just get by, but if somebody else has something, they have to have it too. I know people who go and buy the Mercedes, they don't have hot dogs in their refrigerator. There are people like that. You can't even come to their home and find somewhere nice to sit. But the blue over there has got a Mercedes, so I gotta have a Mercedes too.
Yeah.
Even if it means I use all my resources to pay for that Mercedes, that is what we call an Igbo, anyofu. Anyofu.
Or definition of stupidity, either one.
You could, that's that too. But that is another kind of poverty that impacts our faith. Instead of being grateful for what we have and giving thanks and even appreciating how we got where we were or where we are, we look at how other people are doing. Why am I not like the other person? That is a level of poverty that really, I'm sorry, you may say, I don't know what percentage in the world they occupy, but a high percentage of humanity is focused on relative poverty, trying to emulate others, or if you can't emulate them, if you can't be like them, then you get angry, then you get frustrated, then you have low self-esteem. Ultimately, that lacks, if I'm going to use that expression, your sense of well-being. That impacts your faith. For some reason, you feel that you're not, your Chineke is not blessing you enough. Because if Chineke was blessing you enough, then you should have what everybody else has. You did.
Yeah. I'm going to share some wisdom, so to speak, regarding this. And I'm also going to touch on some of the points that Dibia Chidozie had made. And I think, and the earlier point that I made, and you could tie them together, to address relative poverty. First of all, let's all keep in mind that the definitions that we see here regarding poverty are all Western definitions. Because this definition of poverty that we have here, if you go to society, like maybe, let's say you are in, what can I say, Japan. These different types of poverty, not all of them, right, makes any sense for us, the way their society is structured. Like, for example, if you go to a village in Umboro and you're looking at relative poverty, and you have a definition, the type of poverty that refers to a person or family living below a certain standard of living compared to others in their society, even though they can afford the basic necessities. And like Chidozie, Dipa Chidozie and I had stated earlier on, it's about the society and how a society is structured. Relative poverty in my village in Umboro is non-existent. Because in non-capitalistic societies, people don't spend too much thinking about what the Joneses have, how much your neighbor have, how big the house is. You are more concerned about living in a society that affords you the opportunity to establish your family and feed them. Take them to, put them in school, do whatever it is that is required in that society.
I take exception to that. Hold on a second. I take exception to that. I take exception to that. And then you the fact that it doesn't exist. It didn't, but it does now, because Eurocentrism has said now.
Well, you have to let me finish my point before you interject to it, because I was trying to make a point. Okay, so let me make the point I'm trying to make.
We're having a conversation, so I'm just jumping.
Yeah, the reason why I'm trying to tie this together is because when you look at the definition of relative poverty, so let's define it again, based on Western definition of the word. This type of poverty refers to a person or family living below a certain standard compared to others in their society, even though they can afford basic necessities. In the beginning of the program, we talked about communalism. We talked about Ipuabala, the rites of passage, and how when you are born, when you get to a certain age, you go through the rites of passage. In the 7 years of your rites of passage, you're prepared to become an adult and be a responsible and contributing member of the society. That is the basic definition of welfare in our village, in Umboro, and in a lot of African communities where communalism stresses that the society comes first before the individual. If you live in a society where the community comes first before that individual, or any individual, regardless of what your status is, relative poverty doesn't exist. In Umboro, when I go to Umboro, when I go with my dad into some homes of some Dibias, He's a Dibia, Dibia Otroja, Dibia Obaja, all kinds of Dibias. The man lives in a hut. He still eats his, what do you call that? Is it a coconut that you roast it, then you dip it into palm oil and you eat it, right? Even though he's a Dibia and he occupies a high level position in the society, he's not thinking about Mercedes Benz. That ain't what he's worried about. Relative poverty is relevant depending on how a society is defined and structured. Relative poverty becomes an integral part of the malfeasance in any society when it comes to taking care of, the status of people, because the person who is jealous, even though they can afford to feed their family, does not have faith in anything. They are self-aggrandizing. They are more important than the society or anybody else. They only care about what they're going to get. And as a matter of fact, they will do whatever is necessary to make sure their neighbors fail so that everybody cannot look at them as the opulent ones. And it's very prevalent in capitalistic societies, in communist societies. The only person that are eating are members of the Politburo, people that are part of the governing capacity of Russia or any communist nation, which means that only the people at the top on the government level really enjoy. Everybody else in the society is the same. Communism in Russia, when Lenin or Stalin were leaders of the Politburo, that was how Russia functioned. As a matter of fact, all the professors that were making good money, all the lecturers, all the artists, even top military officers, the teachers, the medical doctors, particularly in Russia and most specifically in Cambodia, they were all annihilated by the leadership. Millions of people murdered. Stalin killed 50 million people to make sure that he is the only authoritarian force in Russia, and everybody else should be rounded up to do the bidding of the leader. Nobody in Russia was worrying about what Mr. Molotov over here has. They were more interested in trying to avoid the Russian secret police so that somebody doesn't throw them in jail, put them in the gulag, or send them to Siberia to go work in labor camps. So relative poverty, to me, is only applicable in a capitalistic society, because in my village in Nkporo there, nobody was sitting around wondering what Ezukuna has over there. Nobody cared about that. Nobody talked about it. Even though we evolve, and that's what we have now, it totally or absolutely has nothing to do with faith. Or maybe you should stress, what kind of faith do you have? Do you have the faith that says that you get something in a society if you don't put in enough work to accumulate whatever it is that you're trying to accumulate? Because your neighbor that you're looking at that has more than you put in some work to get there, like Dibia Chiadozie, had expressed in the beginning. So you being jealous of somebody else, you have now extricated yourself from any relationship with Chineke. You're not praying to God. I don't know what you're praying for or who you're praying to. But if you had any faith, because people that have faith, as was defined earlier, is either faith with your heart, faith with your head, or your head and your heart work in concert to get you where you want to go. You are more likely to succeed when your head and your heart are working in concert, as opposed to having your heart working on its own, where you end up with that blind faith. And blind faith is so totally meaningless because it has nothing to do with Chineke if you're not using your head. The recognition of God, of Chineke, of a creator did not come from your heart. It came from your mind, your head. The concept of God, the concept of worship, the concept of faith, the concept of everything in this world did not come from your heart. It came from your mind, which is your head. So depending on how a society is structured, relative poverty plays a role. If you're capitalistic, It has no role if it's a communist or communal society or authoritarian society. Relative poverty is meaningless because your neighbor is not thinking about what you got. They're thinking about how to make sure that the authority in power does not come after them for anything that is considered as an affront to the leadership of any particular society. So for me, relative poverty is more about what kind of society you belong to. And if we all evolved in Russia into a capitalistic society like we're doing in Africa, where communalism now is almost meaningless, everything we're doing now is capitalistic in nature. And if you look at a condition in Africa right now, where has it gotten us? As Dibia Chiodoji had mentioned, the religion and the faith that we profess in Africa, Abrahamic religions, there's nothing African about it. And yet nobody else wants to be like you. I don't see any European trying to be a chaste and will go through all manner of hell to convince somebody to start to look at African religious faith. But the European will come, the Arab will come with their spears and their guns and every other weapon of mass destruction that they could get their hands on to colonize you, to enslave you, to force you to go through their own definition of what you should be based on their own standards. So for me, relative poverty is, how do you say, you can recognize that as a human condition if you're in a capitalistic society. If you're in an authoritarian community society, if you're in a communal society, or if you're in a communist society, particularly, not particularly, but let me just stress authoritarian and communal, communist society, which outside of African traditional way of living are the two prevalent system of leadership or how societies are structured outside of communal type, society norms and behaviors. Only if you're in a capitalistic society can you worry about relative poverty, because here you are in a society where you can feed your family, you have a car, you even own a house, you can buy clothes, you have a good job, you're a manager, but you're more worried about the manager ahead of you or your neighbor who is making more money, lives in a bigger house. And then you're over here having the green-eyed monster in your relationship with your neighbor, as opposed to going to your neighbor and saying, hey, man, you got more money than I do. How did you do it? Can you show me? Can you teach me? What can I do to see if I can move myself a little bit further than I am right now? That's what you should be concerned, thinking about. I mean, if that's what you're thinking about, God ain't going to do it for you, because you still have to get up yourself, go find out how to get yourself to the position that you've been having a green eye monster, reaction to. That jealousy, all that stuff. It's got nothing to do with faith. Real faith is human-based, because, as we said, you want some of that blessing that you see around you that is making you feel like you ain't getting enough. You have to put in the work. You have to ask questions. And in the end, it is your neighbor. It is another human being that is going to give you or show you the skills that you need to get your condition a little bit more, affluent than it is right now. So, relative poverty, yeah. If you're in a communist country, good. If you're in Africa and your communal system or communist government where capitalism is now the order of the day, then you could make that argument, because in Africa now, since we have abandoned the communal system, relative poverty is now prevalent. Whereas before the European or the Arab came to Africa, we didn't have any reason, to be jealous of anybody, because the society made sure that you, as a citizen of that community, have access to information and things that are put in place to make sure that you don't fall through the cracks of the society. And then through your age grade, you join the age grade system. They're separated by 5 years. You have the warrior class, like maybe from the age of 20 to 25, for example. Then from 25 to 30, you have another set of age grade that does something else in the society. Then from 35 to 40, they do something else. 40 to 45, then 45 and up, you become an elder. You don't have to go to war. You don't have to fight those battles. You have a warrior class that can do it. Now you are now a DB. You're not doing all kinds of stuff. There's so many other things now that you can do. That's how it worked. But now we don't have that anymore. Everything we have now is foreign.
Okay.
So the relative poverty now becomes something
That's
that
right. Okay, now
because of colonization, slavery, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything you've said, absolutely. But let us just remember that there are different aspects of poverty, okay, different types of poverty with different names in Igbo, in Yoruba, in Hausa, or whatever. In Igbo, we call it Anyofo, okay, Anyofo. That's greed. That's a jealousy. People are jealous, not necessarily just because of wealth. People can be jealous of all kinds of people. Go to war in Africa back then when they needed more land. Okay, these people have more land and we need more land, so we go to war so we can get more than, either get as much as they have or get more. It's a whole different reasons why you have a relative poverty. But the point of the matter is the definitions that I'm giving you of poverty, the levels may be different in different cultures, as you've stated, yes, but they do exist. They just have a different name in different tongues, okay? But they do exist, again, at different levels, more so, as you have indicated, in capitalistic societies. But they do exist in society, period. Different levels and for different reasons. So, but thank you for your contribution. Well said, well said. Dibia Chedozie, your take on that?
Yeah, and they want you say a lot of things that prepares people, someone like me. So by the time you finish, I will have a lot of information.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, for me, poverty, rather jealousy, is a human thing. It's part of the human ontology, because it's part of the human chemistry. And so what the Igbo call Anyofo, jealousy, is a manifestation of the ontological foundation, has its ontological foundation in what the Igbo call Obiufo, meaning bitterness of the heart. And so what leads to that? What leads to that is that all of us have different nature. There are those by nature who are very, very broad-minded, and they are naturally happy people. They are not looking for people to dominate, and they don't want people to dominate them. There are people who by nature are domineering, and they don't want anyone to surpass them. If anyone will surpass them, they will put that individual down. You have it if you have such people as husband, the woman suffers. They will always put the woman down. If you have that kind of individual as wife, she always finds a way to make sure the man is held down to her own level of understanding, so that the man will not have eye for other ladies. In our house, in our different homes, we'll find our children have different nature, because we can have one mother, one father, same parents, 12 children, 12 different nature. So you will find those that if you leave them, they will dominate others. When you serve them food, they will finish their own and go and take that of others. If you don't teach them the ethics or etiquette of sharing, they will always like to take the lion's share. And so the whole essence of finding society ultimately is to manage human nature. And that is why society was managed by the Igbo on the principle of Ogunofo, or Fonogu. The middle line, which is Alo. Alo is different from Aro. Of Ogu, we can say it's a principle of innocence, principle of fair-mindedness. While Ofo can be looked at as a principle of authority. Alo is a principle of responsibility and responsiveness. You have to be responsible and have to be responsive. There are human beings who naturally are inclined to this. But there are human beings who operate after these outside these principles. So the whole essence of society is to make sure that every individual operates on this cosmic principle of always looking for balance in the midst of extremes. That's the whole thing about Ofonogu and Alo, always looking for balance in the midst of extremes. And what we call Ofonogu, the Yorubas will call it Watumosi. That's you measure by the right, you measure by the left, and always bring issues to the middle point where you make sure there's integration, there's coexistence, there's cooperation. And so for that kind of society to be, you must, like we said, build society on humanism, not on materialism. Now, here in Africa, that kind of culture is fast dying. And like I went into talking with some people, that you call Igbo apprenticeship system is dying. And somebody asked me the question, why is it dying? I said, because the Igbo ontology of Ofonogu has been bastardized.
Yeah.
And because it has been bastardized, the Igbo ontology of relationship is fast dying. The Igbo spirituality is no longer the foundation on which the Igbo is operating, because the Igbo foundation of Ofonogu is the anchor for reciprocity of respect, because you have principles as live and let live, win-win attitude. Everyone should be learned to be content by what you have. And the discipline for us when we were growing up is that if we don't have television in our house, there is no television anywhere else. So when other people are busy eating, you eat what you have. So we have various proverbs. Mama is onye nwe ji nwede nwa akpụ kọrọ ede ya ma wakpo ya ma uji ya, so that you learn that sweetness and bitterness are parts of life. As you taste sweetness, also know that suffering. As you love pleasure, also know that pain is part of life. So that you learn how to get through your pain, how to carry through your pain. So with that kind of mentality of always looking for balance, you'll find that there was less of that bitterness of the heart, because success, or who is a successful person, was not measured by money. The problem in Africa today is that nobody cares how you get the money. Just get the mullah, like they say. Get the pala. And once you have
necessary,
whether you are a rogue, whether you are a drug baron, whether you killed 50 million people to get it, nobody cares. What people care about is that you have material wealth. So we have defined success.
They'll give you chieftaincy.
Yeah, chieftaincy. Yeah. Those days, chieftaincy is not by your material acquisition. is by your attitude, your mentality.
I want you to continue, but I want you to add this to your presentation. Let me see if you can twist it up in there. I'm not a PhD holder, even though I have them coming. But, you know, I'm not like you and OKDB here in terms of your academic qualifications. But I want you to infuse this into your presentation because I think it's very important. I always look beyond the microscope, and I just believe I don't see things the way other people do it. And because of that, I just think I'm very special, intellectually speaking, because I look at things differently. And here's what I want you to see if you can incorporate this into your presentation. Absolute poverty, relative poverty, generational poverty, rural poverty, urban poverty, asset poverty, and collective poverty, which I'm sure KDB will probably, you know, go through this list and we will address it. But what I've noticed is that when I look at all these poverty definitions, only one of them is psychological. Everything else is physical. And that's why I don't consider relative poverty poverty, because it's psychological. If you look at absolute poverty, it's the most basic form of poverty defined by not having enough income. If you look at generational, it describes a situation where poverty is passed from generation to the next. Rural poverty refers to poverty experienced with people living in rural areas. Urban poverty is poverty concentrated in urban areas. Asset poverty is a type of poverty focused on lack of savings. Collective poverty is described as a situation where a whole community or society experiences widespread poverty, often due to systemic issues and lack of economic opportunities or political instability. You see how this whole thing is all physical? You can touch it. But the relative poverty is a psychological thing. It's a type of poverty that refers to a person or family living below a certain standard of living compared to others, even though they can afford basic necessities. You understand what I'm saying?
I think you guys. Wait a minute. I think you guys are misunderstanding the purpose of. Wait a minute. Let's understand the purpose of this segment today. We're supposed to address all these different definitions of poverty. How all of that impact our faith? How does it impact your faith? How does economic hardship impact your faith? All right? Doesn't matter where in the world you are. Does it exist?
That's what I'm trying to talk about.
If it does exist, wherever it does exist, how does that impact your faith? Faith in Chineke. How does that cause you?
That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay, Lydia, that's the point.
Okay, okay. Excellent. We're going through the whole thing, so we can just stop.
What I'm saying is that relative poverty. Hold on now, okay, Dibia, hold on a second. Relative poverty. I want him to add something to what he's saying. It's very important. I wanted him to add something and discuss.
Let him say, you just wait a minute now.
Okay, go ahead.
Let him finish his thought. Then if you have something you want to add, then you add it. But let him finish his thought so we can move on. Excellent for your point. I take your point.
Go ahead.
I get what you're saying. But let him finish his thought. And if you have something else you want to add to the conversation, then by all means do. Chedozie, go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay, go ahead, Chedozie.
Like I was saying, our problem is that we are not. Yes. Our problem is that we are living a borrowed style, and we have not even bothered to understand the foundation of the style we have decided to mimic. In the first instance, so we are not adapting, so we are not transforming, we are just mimicking. And once you are mimicking, you don't develop. So along the line, we are hung in between the deep sea and the blue heaven. We are neither Africans anymore, so to speak, or neither are we Europeans in thought. We are confused in the mind. And so you have a confused state of Africa. So all the levels of poverty you have outlined is a manifestation of a malstructure in Africa. Those levels of poverty, the West is dealing with it relative to the type of Western society we talk about. Like if you go to the Scandinavian countries, you discover that human development in the West is most centered in the Scandinavian countries. But one thing they have not been able to achieve is communalistic spirit. Because people there, you are born potentially rich. If you are Swedish, if you are a Swiss, if you are a Danish, or you are Norwegian, or you are Finnish, you are born potentially rich because society there has been structured in such a way that it is human-centered and the state is philanthropic. In fact, they run what you call Scandinavian humanism. But that's, unfortunately, that's the place you have what you call suicide rates high. Somebody may decide to commit suicide because the girlfriend or the boyfriend jilted him or her. You know, those kind of very flimsy things. They commit suicide on very simplicity. So there, they are suffering from another kind of poverty, the poverty of lack of communalistic spirit. And so there, you find that in those places, the faith they have is not religious. The faith they have is not spiritual. The faith they have is secular. The faith they have is in the constancy and consistency of the system that hardly fails. They have faith, they have confidence in the system. And they have confidence and faith that the system does not fail. Just like down here, we have faith that the dollar does not fail, the pound does not fail, the euro does not fail. So rather than save in Naira, we will save in foreign currency. We even go and we don't even want to leave our dollars anymore. The little dollar we have or foreign currency we have, we don't want to leave it in the bank. We want to take it from the bank and keep it at home. Because we have faith that those currencies are better managed than our own currency that fluctuates all the time. So faith in most of these organized societies does not necessarily have to be spiritual or have to be religious. It has gone secular because we have what we call the religious or spiritual sense of God, which defines the religious or spiritual sense of faith. We also have the non-religious or secular sense of faith of God, which also defines the non-religious or secular sense of faith. So here, like you mentioned, faith is a function of the human society. Here, there is much of religious faith, not spiritual faith, religious faith, because of high level of poverty. So all the levels of poverty you have outlined are manifest here in Africa, particularly today in Nigeria. Now, because in Nigeria, we have continued from independence till date, we have continued with the colonial economic, in fact, colonial structure, politically, economically, socially, religiously, everything is centered on colonial system. So what we're suffering from today is internal colonization. And so the poverty, all the manner of poverty you have outlined are there. There's rural poverty because the rural area is being ignored. In fact, if you come here, the local government system that is supposed to take care of the rural area is dead. It has been killed by the state because the politicians want those who are loyal to them to be at the local government. So the local government that is at the rural area is dead. So no development is happening in the rural area. That even when we talk about development, development for us has been defined as material growth. Development in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, is not human-centered. So the kind of education we even give to our children is what Paulo Freire would call the banking system, colonial system of banking colonial knowledge. Knowledge structure that is not relevant to our environment is what they bank into our heads. which is why schools can go on strike, universities can go on strike on end. Nobody cares. And when you ask the government, say, are they relevant? What they teach is not relevant. So home video theater is more relevant than what the teacher is teaching, because home video videos are addressing the realities in the society: witchcraft, reincarnation, one person forcing the other, even though they misrepresent our culture. That is more relevant to what is troubling the people. But they are compounding the problem, they are not solving it. So that compounds what you call mental poverty. So, like you said, our problem is essentially psychological, mental, and because from that mental poverty generates all kinds of poverty. So, if you go to China, you discover that there are 4 levels of economy. Of these 4 levels of economy determine 4 levels of politics. They have what they call village economy, commune economy, state economy, and federal economy. And so if you go to China, they did a reversal of colonization. The style of Western colonization is that they aggregate everything at the metropole, at the city level. And so they take resources from the villages to the city. If we continue with that kind of colonial economy, then all the manners of poverty you have outlined will keep manifesting. It means we'll be taking the plenty from the village to the city, which is why today, if we want to go back to our villages, we buy food from the cities and take food from the cities to the villages. You'll be surprised to go to the villages. Yam at the village is more expensive. So there's high level of rural poverty. And that also tells you that more people are migrating away from the village to the cities, creating more urban poverty. So more people are in the cities than required. And so you are going to have more slums, more crime. So multiple levels of poverty because of the metropole kind of economy we run, metropole kind of politics that we run. And that if you go to Asia, particularly China is the example here, because they started just 1948 here, India 1954. But particularly China, you discover that the industries are in the villages and at the commune level. At the state and federal level, what you have are warehouses for showcasing the products in the villages and at the commune level. So that way, development was taken to the villages, so that if you go to the villages, all the things you have in the city are in the villages. Is it internet? Is it social wealth? Everything you have in the city, they're in the villages. So, but if in the villages there's high level of poverty that people can even hardly eat one square meal. If they eat 1 meal, the meal is not square. All right. Then someone is coming with a limousine or BMW 2024 series. Of course, the people in the village, we grow jealous. There'll be high level of jealousy. Are we cursed? How come it's so family? Is their children that have gone abroad and they are coming with limousine? So the tendency is to hack that individual down. What do you call PhD? Hack him or hack her down. PhD. That's what is, and that's because we have created a high level of poverty at the village level, at the rural area. And so people there feel inferior. And when you are coming down home, they look at you as someone who has come to intimidate them. So they are waiting for you with a lot of negative spirituality, achere, which they put there, and then you step on it, and before you know, the person's leg begin to swell up, and it produces a kind of diabetes effect. Because when the individual has diabetes, you see the leg gets swollen at the time, it has a sore that cannot eat. That's the kind of thing that achere does. And several other things they are with the individual with. You give them money to do something, they can't even help themselves. They have what we call low self-esteem down in the village. So it's like those who remain in the villages are those who have low self-esteem, they have no future, and then those who have migrated abroad are those who are well-to-do. Now, this is a colonial circle in the sense that Colonialism brought a sense of eminence of those who went to school and those who did not go to school. And then when you come in the class of those who went to school and those who did not go to school, you have this mentality of those who went to Oxford, those who went to Cambridge, those who went to Harvard, those who went to Leningrad. We are celebrating everything foreign. And so the poverty for us in Africa is, like you said, mostly mental, psychological. Generally, all of us are suffering from inferiority complex. But this inferiority complex trickled down from the city down to the village. And by the time you get to the village, low self-esteem, no confidence at all. And when a people lack confidence, they cannot change their situation. That is, they have no faith in them. Because the faith, like I said, is human. And why is faith human? We have all the properties to exercise faith in the sense that we have the notion of self, and we understand what it means to have willpower. So faith is an exercise of the human willpower. But this exercise of human willpower must be guarded and guided by the human power of vision. Yeah. And so the human power of vision is to foresee the future. When you foresee the future, you define the future. When you define the future, then you must develop rules, programs for step-by-step attainment of that vision. That's what we call deontological ethics, projecting into the future and developing rules that will take you to that future. And once you have defined those rules, you are bound to dutifully, by obligation, it's imperative that you must obey every step of those rules for attaining the vision of that vision. That's called deontological ethics, which is different from consequentialist ethics. Consequentialist ethics is that after you have attained your goal, you measure how you attained it. Okay, instead of 10 years, I spent 5 years. How? How come I attain it in 5 years instead of 10 years? Or instead of 10 years, I spent 15 years. How? You make evaluation. So one of the ethics is proactive, the other is reactionary. So it is always better to operate by the complementarity of proaction and reaction. And that is why you discover that those who lack, once you suffer from what we call low self-esteem and lack of faith in self, you will not be able to alter your situation. Now, in Africa, there is a general tendency of inferiority complex. And so we are always trying to be like I said, Ihanto. And so we are always starting our faith from the wrong footing. The wrong footing is that we start our faith from outside. We don't start our faith from ourselves. We have confidence in the abroad system and no confidence in the home system. And then if you look at our education system and all the spirituality that is guiding and directing us, they are all based abroad, whether intellectual or spiritual. Our minds intellectually are towards Harvard, towards Columbia, towards Oxford, towards Cambridge, towards Paris, towards Cologne, towards Berlin, Tokyo, Beijing, Punjab. Abroad, spiritually is either to Rome or Mecca. And now we are adding India. And very soon we add China. So mentally and spiritually, our minds and spirits are outside. Only our bodies are in Africa. And that is why you see that our education system starts by us singing about Pussycat that went abroad to London to see the Queen, singing London Bridge is falling down. So everything that is meant to equip the African stands on a wrong footing. The faith is anchored on having faith in the abroad foreign system, not on self, because the foundation of faith is onwe. And that onwe must be defined within the confine of the culture of the people. Once there's once there's a derailment from this foundation, we are not going to develop. We have our faith nose downwards. And that will create inferiority complex. And with people with inferiority complex, we have multiple kinds of poverty plaguing them. And they will not have the faith to monster, that monster of faith to solve the problem will be lacking because their minds are skewed as outward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. You had. Thank you, Didier. Thank you very much. You wanted to add some comments? Did you want to add some comments, or could we move to the next point?
Well, real briefly. It says that faith can help people cope with hardship in a number of ways, providing a sense of purpose, improving perspective on work, providing hope, growing faith, buffering against financial strain, helping faith communities fight poverty. That's definition of faith and economic hardship. The point I was trying to make before is when you define these things, all these definitions are common in every society, like you guys have rightfully pointed out. The relative society is different. I mean, poverty is different. And when they're listing it, yes, you could list it as an explanation of a type of poverty, but it is one of those poverty, when you read the definition, you start to question exactly what role does faith play when you're dealing with somebody dealing with relative poverty that refers to a person or family living below a certain standard of living compared to others in their society, even though they can afford basic necessities. Who are the others in the society? Everybody else but them. It's mental. You can afford the basics. How did those people create a standard of living that is better than mine? What can I do to get up to their standards instead of being jealous? Can I go talk to them so that they could share some secret with me? This is the only role faith will have in that if you're trying to get information on how to get there. But if you're just sitting around praying that God can give you a standard that is up to those people, but you're not putting any work in to get you there, then relative poverty is just an individual. You make yourself see the world from that relative poverty point of view. It's not the society that created it. It's not a struggle against economic hardship in a society. It's you trying to get somewhere without putting in the work and being jealous of somebody else because they are there. But instead of saying, how did you get there? Can you show me? Can I get some knowledge from you to get me over there? I'm over here worried about, well, they're all doing better than I am, even though I'm eating fufu 3 times a day if I want to. But my fufu pot is just not as big as their fufu pot. Now I'm all upset about it. You see what I'm saying? So for me, the relative poverty thing, faith and that, either you take that definition off or minimize the role that faith plays when it comes to relative poverty, because that just tells me you have no faith at all and you're not appreciative of your condition because you're not starving. You're not poor. You're not begging. You're not asking for help from anybody. You can afford the basics based on the definition. But the psychological part of it, where the green-eyed monster jumps out and plays a role, instead of trying to figure out how does this Madubuchi Bear thing help me to deal with this relative poverty so that I could get up to speed as everybody else, assuming that I'm either one of the few or the only person in the society who doesn't have the same success that everybody else has. So your faith is not about, oh God, help me to be able to feed my family. Help me so that I could be able to afford to go to a school, to send my children to good schools, blah, 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 blah. Because obviously, based on the definition, you can do all those things. They just got a little bit more than you have. You understand what I'm saying? It's a mental thing. Everything else is physical. Whether you like it or not, you must do those things so that you are not poor. But relative poverty, as defined by them, doesn't make you poor. It just means that you just ain't happy that you're not rolling like everybody else out there that put in work, because those people didn't get to their position of having more than you because the society gave it to them, but refused to give it to you. That's my point.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for that. Let's just remember that Many of us are taught that if we just pray, and many people actually go to church and they pray and pray and pray, looking for some relief in during economic hard times. All right. The problem is when individuals face these kinds of challenges, their feelings, their sense of comfort begin to dissipate. If after prayer, looking up to this being, depending on what they call it, some people call Chineke, Jehovah, Allah, Jesus, whomsoever you look up to, your source of inspiration. Many people are told that if you pray long enough and hard enough, then it's supposed to eliminate your challenges and your future is better because of prayer. But what happens is that after you do all that prayer and it's not working, you develop a certain level of anxiety. You develop anxiety, frustration, despair. You start to doubt your faith because you've been taught to put your faith in the spiritual being that's supposed to solve these problems. And when it doesn't work, that's when people mentally begin to suffer. That's when you start, all those human emotions start to come, human experiences start to become more manifest than your faith in the spirit that's supposed to help you out of it. So the point of this whole discussion is to remind everyone that there are different kinds of reasons why people act the way they do or feel the way they do when they're supposed to embrace their faith. Faith is supposed to be their solace. Just pray, just do this, just do that. But they're doing all this stuff they're supposed to do, but still they're poor, okay? Or still they see other people doing better. All of those things shake their faith. So what we're talking about today is to remind you, though your faith may be shaken, okay, because you're not getting what you want, you must find a way to come out of your morass, your faith morass, if I may use that. You may have to seek some help, seek solace from somebody. Ask somebody, as Yudi has said, ask somebody how are they handling. If you're jealous of somebody having more, how did they get there? There's a video that I see, a guy goes out in the street and he asks somebody, well, you're driving this car. How did you get there? How did you get this car? Find out how people are making it. Find out how people are making it and you're not making it. So that way you don't necessarily lose faith. You just have to change the way you go about doing things. And ultimately, what happens, this is human nature, when things work out for us, our faith is stronger. We believe that Chineke, or whatever name you have for the Creator, is working for us. It helps to uplift our spiritual beliefs when what we're looking for begins to become a reality for us. I'm not going to go through all the poverty. Yudi has listed all of that. So I'm just going to stop at this point. All right. I'm just going to stop at the relative poverty. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and look at what everybody has written and see if we can add to the conversation that they have initiated. Let's start with again, thank you, Stephanie, for being here. I love your comments. You're paying attention and contributing quite well, so thank you. Let me look at what Akimi Bro has said, that hope, it's that light at the end of the tunnel that people talk about when it comes to hope. Anybody want to talk about it? Well, I think what he's trying to say is that light at the end of the tunnel is what gives you hope. It's something you can aspire. You can, through all the challenges, it's always that light at the end of the tunnel that you can.
The pot of gold, at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, there you go. It's part of your hope. Hope is light. Hope is belief. Hope is faith. That's what connects you. That's what grounds you. That's what makes you keep going. I have hope. This is going to happen. I have hope. I believe. This is my faith. Sometimes your faith is shaken. That hope is shaken. But, you know, if you address your challenges in the right way and not fall apart, if you, I don't mean pray more. I mean, find out, as we indicated, how are other people making it? Find out what you can do. If prayer is not working, what else can I do? And then you go after whatever it is with all of your capacity. And once you achieve it, that's when you're going to start feeling a little bit different about your faith. But just remember, there's nothing wrong with holding on to faith. There's nothing wrong with it at all. That's like Mecca said, that light at the end of the rainbow, okay, at the end of the tunnel, that's your hope. And if you hold on, you're going to follow that light and get to where you want to get to. So thank you, Akimi bro, for that comment. And the other person is, let's see, Stephanie. Stephanie, when we were talking about scapegoating and the practice of us, let me see what she said. I agree. Scapegoating is an awful practice worldwide. Yes, yes, we scapegoat. They were talking about the Haitian thing, you know, or you know, finding people to blame for your challenges or trying to use people for your own good, for your own purpose, whatever that may be. You know, that's why we have scapegoating. She's saying that it's awful and it's worldwide. That's correct. I definitely say something when I hear people say negative things about anyone that has less power. That's right. You know, when we say that Madu Buchibeya, you know, when we say we're God to each other, that's what it means. When you see that somebody is struggling, your role is not to make them feel worse than where they are already. You know, yeah, your role is to help them, uplift them. And it goes without saying that your power is greater, is more evident when people can see that you're using that power to uplift others, not to undermine people and make people feel less than they really should feel. And also, Stephanie also says, I believe that people see God in people. Yes, if we are made in the image, we show people in action what we believe. I love that. I love that. Show me who you are. Show me the God in you. Don't tell me. Show me. I will believe you based on what you show me, not what you tell me. You know. So in an African spirituality, we always well, in Igbo spirituality in particular, we say we see the God in each other. And if we believe that God is sacred, then we must see other human beings as sacred and respect and honor them. That's quite frankly, this is how you honor Chineke, by honoring your fellow human beings. Thank you, I love that. And this is Stephanie again. She says some of us in the West are still communal. We have family homes, but it is seen as just what we do. It's true. America, in the African American community, you see that, and our communities, let me not just say African Americans, but I'm an African, so for the most part, I congregate and associate with mostly people of the African descent, and you can see that communal behavior, you know, and the way they treat each other, the way they welcome each other, the way they feed each other, the way they express concern for each other. That's still communal thinking. And I see that here, and I agree with you, Stephanie. Let's see here. I was blessed to grow up. This is Stephanie. I was blessed to grow up in a communal culture in the USA, yes, because of others. My family moved from poverty through education. Lots of people help each other. That's right. We do that in Africa too. We, you know, if you go back in our history, we talked about it a while ago, where African farmers would put food to make sure that put food on they hang it on trees. Not hang it, but they're tied to trees and limbs or whatever, so that the poor will see it and go and get it without asking for permission. You know, that's communal. You know, we, you know, my wealth lies in my community. So what I do for my community makes me rich. If I'm rich and my community is poor, I'm not really rich. So that I agree with you. Let's see. And that's basically the comments I'll go over right now. Let's see. That's basically, well, here's something else that Stephanie said. We believe that God wanted us to do the right thing. Yes. Yes, Stephanie, you're right. God, Olodumare, Tamona, Diami, Katonda, whatever name we have for the Creator, wants us to do the right thing. In our situation, poverty sometimes causes us not to think about the power of Chineke and how, if we harness it correctly, we will achieve what we want. But situations and conditions and principalities impact our faith and cause us to just focus more on what we don't have than we focus on the possibility if we find the right way to manifest our desires. I'd like to ask Dibia Chinduzi for you just have time's up, but you have one 1 minute to summarize your thoughts, and then you have 1 minute to summarize your thoughts.
Yeah, the 1 minute is that we have to match faith with vision and practice, because the essence of prayer is to ask the cosmic mind to open up opportunities for us. But remember that spirit world opening an opportunity, you need a physical presence for you to make that opportunity to come into materialize into something practical. So don't practice empty faith, practice practical faith, which is a unison of both spirituality and work, so that you pray for opportunities, you prepare yourself to with the expertise and training, all that is required, the adeptness, the expertise required to seize upon opportunities. That's how it was.
Thank
you. Beautiful.
Yes.
Faith without works.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
You want me to go on? You want me to say
Absolutely.
something? Okay. Faith without works is dead.
Is that your comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
From UD.
Yes, it's me, UD. Can you guys hear
me? Is that your comment?
Yeah, I'm trying to make my last comment before we close the show. So I'm saying to the audience that that faith without works is dead. You can't just have faith, but you're not trying to do anything. Faith by itself, if it doesn't have works, it's dead. If somebody says to somebody, probably say to you, if you have faith and I have works, show me your faith without works, and I will show you my faith by my work. So believe in God is meaningless if you're not working towards accomplishing something. Whether you're talking about what do you call it? Absolute poverty, relative poverty, generational poverty, rural poverty, urban poverty, asset poverty, or collective poverty. All of them require works. All of them require effort from you. All of them require planning. All of them require another human being to intercede for you to get where you want to go. Because God's blessings is not going to fall from the sky. It's going to come through another human being. So having faith also means that you have trust in your fellow human being, that in your time of need, if your car flew off the highway and fell into a river, and you're going on and you're praying to God, please, God, help me. Somebody is going to come in there and pull you out of that water. That is God working. You need money to pay your bill, and you pray to God. You go and ask your cousin for $100 so you can pay your light bill. God has answered your prayer through somebody else. So do not separate your faith from work and people. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. Hold on to your faith. Do the work that you need to do so that your faith will manifest into your dreams and your goals. Dibia Cheduzi, thank you so very much. Dibia Yudi, thank you. And of course, I would like to thank those who have made all the comments today. Stephanie YDA, thank you so much. Emeka, thank you. I believe those two, and Diane, thank you very much. Also, let's see, Charles Gochuku, thank you very much. Thank you for those that have not made any comments but listened to us today. Thank you for joining us. I hope in some manner or form we have touched you, and so that you will be more than happy to join us again next Sunday. Thank you, and all of you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And be careful, please, while you're out there. Do the right thing so nothing but goodness shall follow you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. All right. Yagazi.
Yagazi.